next one is Guy Taylor. Guy Taylor, the infamous Guy Taylor.
Well, first and foremost, what a turnout. I mean, come on, be honest, innit? Last time I was here, I mean, what a turnout. So, you know, things are moving on, aren't they? So, right, I've made a little few notes, right, because nothing's really organised when I'm talking about anything, as you probably realise, you know me. And so, I think everybody knows me, so I don't have to go through who I am and what I'm about and all that, yeah? So I think we're on that page. Oh, come on. I mean, talk to me later. I mean, that's the whole point. If the place gets too full, and there are people that you need to talk to, you think, you know, you want to, surely the place to talk to is out the back in the garden, yeah? People like, you know, Carol or Mark or Tom or, you know, or John or whoever, you know, whoever's involved, that's the place to talk to them one-to-one, yeah? And as far as I'm concerned, as long as I'm here, I'm up for talking to anybody, you know, and whatever. So, first and foremost, there seems to be a them and us situation, right? There's them and there's us, right? And this is what they always say in the 60s. Who, you know, who are them then? Well, I'll tell you who them are. Them are the people who aren't operating correctly. They're operating outside their jurisdiction, operating as almost like a virus in the system. The ones who are doing their job correctly, whether it be in the police, whether it be in social service, we're happy with them to the extent that as long as they're operating under, you know, the codes of the law. But I mean, there's a them and us situation. There's a them and those who are doing wrong. There's them who are doing things wrong and us. So as far as I'm concerned, that's what the situation is. So where we're talking about mass actions and things, you know, I've done private criminal prosecutions, and we've been involved in all this stuff over all these years. Each one of us, we know when we make a complaint or we say something that's wrong, we're like a little arrow, right? And it's a huge, it's Godzilla, right? And we're chucking, and we know our arrow's got no good, it's got no power. So what we do is we become a quiver of arrows. You know, if we were all grains of sand on a beach, would we realise we were a beach? Oh no, I'm just a grain of sand. Oh, I'm just a grain, and so we are the beach. So we become a quiver, and that quiver of arrows we can attack the thing that we've got problems with. Trust, right? These are, again, I'm just on the things that I've heard the other day. Trust. What's trust? Okay. Of course, we trust each other, right? We're human beings, right? You're looking after each other's interests, aren't we? You know, you look after my interests, I look after yours. If I'm driving down the road, I'm not going to head my car at your car and kill you if I want to kill myself. Yeah. So there's always an element of trust, and that's what they've abused by manufacturing our consent as if it was involved in a trust. Gangstalking. Now, I mean, I know that's been mentioned here today. Gangstalking. It goes on. Our neighbourhood watch isn't the neighbourhood watch anymore. It's the Stasi state, yeah? And I mean, we're involved with military people who are ex-special forces who are telling us this is what's going on. If there's a local group, a local focus group involved in, the security of that estate, they become completely isolated. They then start getting funding. It's in their interest to make sure there's things going on. This is what's going on all over the country. So, we don't trust each other anymore. There you go, trust. What's going on? Who can you trust? Well, I've said this many occasions, right? When you're in a group and you're with people and the person isn't trying to stop what you're trying to say to someone else, or I don't want him talking to Mark, he might say this. When you just say, look, get on and work with people, we're all different, right? When you're doing that and people don't like that and try and step in and partition you, that's when you know things are going wrong. Because it's not just the cream that rises to the top, it's also the scum, right? So we've got to be aware of that. And I think that most people have got a filter system nowadays, and I think our filter system is pretty good. It don't take long to work out who's right, who's wrong, and who's indifferent. And a lot of people are fairly autistic and who are involved in what we're doing, and that's because they're wired up differently. And so we look at that and think, well, okay, well that guy, he is a bit odd, but it doesn't mean he's a wrong one, it just means he's different, his thought process is different. So we've got to take that into account, but our filter systems are becoming better. And if you can't get a reference to somebody else, someone introduce themselves and I'm a great mate of Mark's or Tom's or whatever, I can check that out and check the reference out. And check that out. Football fans, that was mentioned by John, right? Interesting. because a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I had talks with top boys, right? People who are supposed to be, so I don't know if you know, but Nottingham Forest football fans might hate Bristol City football fans, but if they're playing each other, they arrange a meet beforehand to have a fight, right? And they've got each other's mobile numbers, and they go there and they kick shit out of each other, right? Why, I don't know, right? But they do that all over the country. And then what happens is, if there's a European match, they'll look up together and go over on the coaches and work together. So my way of looking at it at that point was, well, hang on, you're worried about a piece of leather being kicked around. There's people in your town getting ripped out of their houses, even when they've got haven't got a mortgage. You know, we've got to the stage where there are people who are dying, and their families are coming there, and then all of a sudden the solicitor is saying, oh, there was a charge upon the property, and basically sucking the whole estate dry. I mean, it's going on all over, you know, on a massive scale. Okay, we don't need proof of it. Anyone who thinks the banks are right, you get some of these mental fraggles, we call them, trolls, you know, they must think the banks are perfectly correct, the courts are operating perfectly correct. Well, I think everyone here will agree that none of them are operating correctly. Not one of them. Yep. Right? So, and if you scrutinise any of them, they all fall apart fairly quick. So, that's my little rant on what's happened there. Now, what's happened to me recently? Very interesting, because all I try and do is I try and throw myself, whether I'm insane or whatever, I try and throw myself into the wheels and the cogs of the machine. I mean, see what happens. So, for instance, about 5-6 years ago, when we sold some property. It was some industrial land, and I sold it to a person in Hereford, and we'd done it through solicitors, it was all done, the stuff I'd inherited. I kept getting business rate bills for the area, so I just binned them. I'm not going to initiate a response. This went on for some time. Next thing, they took me to bankruptcy. So I thought, hang on, they're trying to bankrupt me for something that I don't own, I've sold, I've done it all through solicitors, I thought, let them just carry on. Let's see where they want to take this. They took it to bankruptcy court. We went the whole way, you know, no one had done their diligence in between to discover that, oh, you'd sold the land. It wasn't in my name, it had gone. And of course, when it came to the death of it, in a magistrate's court appearance in Hereford, to do with business rates, and to do with my irregular distress against those business rates. They got a barrister all the way from London, a woman called Mrs. Wrigley, yeah? She's walking around in her little gown and all that, come in the magistrate's court, and we battered her. Because I didn't own the land. It's not my responsibility to tell you. I've got a right to remain silent. Why would I be telling you anything? You guys should be doing your job. But you're not doing your job, for God's sake. And you've taken me all the way to this position, and you've threatened me with the worst thing possible, you know, besides killing me, bankruptcy in their world. So, I'm quite happy to do that. Whether I inherited what I did originally, my inheritance wasn't actually the money and the property. My inheritance perhaps was the experience of what I was going to find out through getting robbed of the property. Who knows? Who knows? So, we move on. And we move on to what's happened in this court case involving me, which I think everyone put their hands up there, everyone aware of it. Okay, you all might have to give a bit of an explanation. Back before Christmas, I received a phone call. It's numbers withheld. If it's a withheld number, then I don't usually pick up, but for some reason I picked up the phone, and there's a guy on the other end. Is that guy Taylor? Who's that? You rung me, who wants to know? It's police, and he said Duffield Parish Police Force, or area police force. So I said, oh yeah. And he said, right, you're not obliged to say anything. If you so he immediately started reading me our rights and the pace on the phone. So I laughed, because we get a lot of phone calls, right? And I just hung up the phone, because you're trying to read my rights over the phone, I don't even know who you are, right? So that's what happened. So that was it, never heard any more. And then in March, on March the 13th, I think it was, last month, I'm at home on a Sunday night, police around the house, which I've had on many occasions, police around the house, torches, the whole 9 yards, inspector, banging the doors, open the door, we're going to break the door down, etc, etc. So I'd gone downstairs, what's going on? I said, right, show me the warrant. He said, we haven't got the warrant. I said, right, okay, under the criminal procedure rules, because you've got to use your own rules. It's no good, you've got to use their own rules against them. Right? Under CPR, Criminal Procedural Rule 13.5, you've got to show me the warrant. Unable to show me the warrant. No, is it in electronic form? I'm happy for anything to be shown to me. No, taken out of police station, made a complaint, never seen the warrant. They told me that there was an offence in Welshpool Magistrates Court where apparently someone has kicked off with allegedly a solicitor and a security guy on the door, and that I was charged with a section 5, which is a public order offence, which you can't go to prison for. But I was charged. Apparently they'd had enough evidence to charge me with this. So fair enough, okay. I was then dragged over to, well, I was locked up all night. In the morning I was put into the hands of Reliance guys, you know, G4S type security. I explained to both the police and the security, look, you can't have any paperwork for this because you're now going to place me as a chattel in a vehicle, give me over to a private security company. You've got to have the correct paperwork, and I haven't seen a warrant. I've seen nothing. So of course the police, this is a little bit beyond them. They've still given me over to this private security company. I'm putting a little metal box and travel best part 100 miles over to Welshpool, but then they decided it was going to be Aberystwyth, which I haven't been to Aberystwyth since I was about 14. So I was taken to a court in Aberystwyth. Dangerous, mind, in the back of those things. They got no, you know, it's like a little metal container. You got no seatbelts. If you have an accident, and you're going up by radar, it's serious mountainside. You're looking, I can see through the little tinted window. There's a big drop there, yeah. And these guys aren't even insured to carry me around, guaranteed, because you can't be insured for anything that's an act of God or breaking the law. And if they haven't got the correct paperwork, they haven't got the law to take me anywhere. They shouldn't be allowing me in cargo. Anyway, we get to Aberystwyth. Eventually, when we get to the town, it takes them half an hour with the sat-nav to find the court, which is genuine. So they're pulling up and asking people in the street. So I'm the only one in this metal box. So I'm getting quite cross, saying, listen, ask someone in a shop. You're asking tourists. There's people here come to the seaside. Ask someone in a shop. And eventually they did. And they got us to the marina, because it's on a marina. So I'm dragged in there. And when you're in court, you've never been in a place like it. There's a beautiful marina with all yachts and boats, etc. So when that happened, now take into account now, I keep saying to them, you're saying I'm in breach of bail, failing to surrender to bail in January. This is now March. I've never been charged, I've never been arrested, I've never been interviewed, and I've never been bailed. So how can I be in breach of bail? Nobody can answer this question. And where's the warrant, which nobody can produce? I end up getting put into the court. So when I'm put into the court, Mark and Tom and Duffy Morgan and a few others are there. So, right, so when I'm in court, I clearly state that there's business before the court. Doesn't mean business before the court. It means business before there's a court case. Simple as that. And the business before the court case is what lawyers and barristers call pleasing bar. Now, we think that there's a plea, they tell us there's a plea. Guilty or not guilty. There's loads of pleas in between them. There's no not just not guilty or guilty. You know, and I've explained stood here. If there's a burglary over the road that we know hadn't been a burglary because the guy had done it himself, and you were charged that burglary, you wouldn't plead guilty to it or not guilty. You'd say there's no case to answer. And this is the same. So the various pleas, I've got some stuff written here which might help them, right? So a dilatory plea, which is what I do one day. A dilatory plea is a plea that does not challenge the merits of a case, but that seeks to delay or defeat the action on procedural grounds. So he's saying, well, excuse me, yeah, there's been no process, I've just been brought here out of the blue. I don't know anything about that case. Maybe someone has kicked off in Welshpool, but it wasn't me, right? But you've already established there was enough to charge me with it. So I haven't got to prove anything. You've already proved to yourself that it must be me. That's why you've charged me. Right? You've got a peremptory plea, right? And that's called a plea in bargain. They're made by defendants to curtail plaintiff actions. These pleas set out special reasons according to which a trial can go ahead. If you've been pardoned for something, if you've already been to prison for it, you can't be charged with it again. You wouldn't make a plea, even say not guilty to a burglary that you've already been done 6 months in prison for. So there's, and there's others. But that's basically what the situation is with that, right? Okay. So I was then put in front of the magistrates on that day, been in custody all night and all the rest of it. And I said, right, I'm not going to give you a plea because I'm aware, that you don't have to enter a plea at this stage, and that I will be requiring a Turnbull hearing. Right? Now that Turnbull hearing means it's based on identity. Identity is a key issue. If someone claims that you've done something, it's very hard to prove that you know anybody. Unless you caught me and Mark Ceylon having a kiss or having a coach or something, right? On camera, again. Quite hard. It's very hard to prove. Yeah, well, okay, that's what I'm saying. It's very hard to prove that we even know each other, right? Someone you went to school with, you couldn't even remember. Yeah? So if you're saying that he's robbed your garage with a gun, you can say, oh, I know him. We were at school together 35 years ago. They'd have to show you, if there's a question of identity, they have to give you an identification parade. Okay, identification. You have to establish that there's an identity problem, okay? And I've got some stuff in here to do that, right? With identity. It's called Turnbull. So it's a Turnbull hearing. If you're questioning the identity of something, it's a Turnbull hearing. So I said to the court at that time, when Tom and Ceylon were there, there'll be a Turnbull hearing because I question the identity. I don't even know what's going on. You've charged me with something. I don't even know what it is. I've received no documentation of the CPS. So I'm here. Who knows what? So they made an order. And anyone was told to look at it. Directions in criminal proceedings. So I've got the case management, is what you've got to do. Now the case management normally is dealt with by the lawyers, but I asked for the case management. So it clearly shows that direction in criminal proceedings, the CPS have got to serve all the evidence by the 28th of the 3rd, 2016. And of course, when that date came, nothing happened. So I thought, okay, when we go to court, there's no case to answer. I've already laid forth that there's identification issues. And in fact, the court clerk has written on this piece of paper, the defendant denies any involvement in any alleged incident, has a son of the same name, uses the same name, and will rely on Turnbull for identification. So it's clear there, that's what is on the court record has got to be dealt with. So when I didn't receive any paperwork from this Crown Prosecution Service, I received that from the court, which is the case management. So when I went to court that day, it was very, very simple to me. They haven't produced the documents that they're supposed to do by the 28th. I haven't got to provide a defence because I don't know what I'm defending. There's going to be no case to answer. First and foremost, if they want to get off the ground, they have to establish the identity, which is all down in the case law. So, we went into court. And bearing in mind, we've had quite a lot of success in the criminal courts lately, with no case to answer, and a lot of people are doing it all over the country. Some people are coming out from all sorts of angles, which is great, it's really interesting. But it's causing a stir. So on that day, myself and Linda walked into the magistrate's court. Now we knew this wasn't even an imprisonable offence. Section 5 public order, you could have and a copper. And they'll charge you that sort of nonsense. Yeah? Whether rightly or wrongly, but that's what they'll do. So when we went to the court, I'm expecting, now back years ago, I used to go in a court, many years ago, and I'd say, I'd take a load of people and we'd say stand up, sit down, and we'd start causing interruption in the court, right? Didn't do us any good. Put the other side on a little bit of a worry, but ultimately we started to use their own rules against them. So anyone who claims all the free man stuff's being used, listen, the free man stuff is right. It's right in principle, it's right in morals. But we know it has no good, it's no good against the machinery that comes against us. So what we do is we get to know that machinery and we fight the machinery in its own backyard. So when we went to court that day, myself and Linda got ushered straight in. We travelled up from Hereford at 6 o'clock in the morning. all the way to there. We got there. Oh yes, come on in. So the usher said, sit down. So I went to this area, and he put Linda in one area, and this clerk jumped up and said, oh, he's sort of like a rabid dog. So I said, move or you'll be in contempt and what. So Linda said, oh, let's remain civil. So Linda went into the where they pointed her to go. So he said, you previously indicated you're not guilty plea. I said, no, there's no plea before the court. No, guilty or not guilty. I said, I can't plead. So we got into an argument, but I know at this point that I'm thinking to myself, hang on mate, you forgot to bring your red nose this morning. Do you know what I mean? What's going on? You're a clown today. You're not a clerk today, you're a clown. Anyway, so the shame went on. I went to the magistrate, blah blah blah. Next thing is, I'm removed from the court and put in a glass box. So I'm put in a glass box. Okay, it's part of the course. They put me in the box. You have to talk them through these little shutters. The magistrates have all gone. This clerk's still fanning around, shouting, and Linda was saying, "Can't anybody see what's going on here?" You know, Linda was saying that in the courtroom. They got her right. So I said to him, it's the gospel truth. So I said to him, like, what's your name, son? And he said, I don't have to give you my name. I said, what's your name? You do. And the 1980 Magistrates called out. He said, well, I'll give you my name. He said, I don't care. My name's Michael Cray. I said, what, as in fish? And he went, yes. And I thought, crayfish, you know, it's a bottom-feeding crustacean. but anyway, so that was what happened there. So the next thing is, then the police come steaming in. So the police surrounded the thing, and I'm saying, right, because I've been up at 6 in the morning, I'm now put in the box, I haven't had a single drink. So you can give me a drink, and I'm locked in the box, away from everybody else, and we can't open the door. Right, so the court's there, you're the court, and they're saying that I can't, and there's no security staff to open the door there. I said, well, give me a straw, something I could drink through the glass partition, right? No, we can't. All the coppers come around, so we've got all this going on. So I said, listen, I'm really happy you guys are here. I said, I should have called you before, which me and Roger hated that. I should have called you before because this is a private business enterprise. These people have got a private security firm, and I fear for my safety, so I want one of you in here at all times. Right? Oh, we're not here for that. Well, we're here to arrest you. What for? Contempt of court. I said, brilliant. Contempt of court. That means I'll be offered the opportunity to explain my actions, and you will arrest me. And the clerk said, no, he's been held in contempt. He's not been charged in contempt. So all this stuff going on. Next thing is, the police, all of them, got in there and said, right, you're going to be moved. And they said, how do we open the door? And this clerk said, oh, it's not locked from this side, because of course. So I went for half an hour without a drink now, shouting and pleading out the door. Anyway, off down the police station. When we got to the police, before we got to the police station, they'd obviously been communicating with Linda, and they were talking to her at the van, and they let me have a little chat with her. Put me in the cage in the back, took me to the police station. So, in the police station, they have to process you, so they take you there, they take all your possessions out and all the rest of it. So, during that process, the sergeant, the desk sergeant, I said, right, you have arrested me for contempt of court. They said, no. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, we haven't arrested you for contempt of court, you've been held in contempt. I said, yeah, but I've been held in contempt in the court. How have you got me here? Well, in the van. I said, but you were insured to drive me in the van because I was cargo, and if you haven't got the correct paperwork under the Consumer Rights Act 2015, then you've been misapplying your service. So this got into a whole bundle of conversation. 6 or 7 coppers came around. I was talking to them for about 45 minutes, and they were all brilliant. Right? They all knew the score. I said, I want a cup of tea, and I said, but the sergeant has to make it, because it always tastes better if the gaffer makes the tea. So he went off and made me a cup, and he did. And they rang up then and said, oh, we want him in the court. We want him in the court, yeah. He's been found guilty in his absence because he failed to turn up. That's what, I mean, this is why when they give you, like a summons to appear, like a genie in a bottle. We summoned you to appear. You know, it's what it's all about. And I hadn't appeared, so they said that I was in, so they found me guilty in my absence. Talk to the coppers. Coppers know the score, man. And I was saying, well, what have you got? What value have you got in this system? You're supporting it. I said, look, if you're supporting bailiffs' activities and they've got dodgy paperwork and you're being told it's dodgy, or they've got no paperwork, and you're stood there, really stood your, make sure there's no breach of the peace. I said, you're in breach of Section 26 of the Criminal Justice Act 2015, which we always pump into them. And look, you should know that when justice has gone, there's always force. And it's a line out of a Laurie Anderson song, if any old enough to remember, Oh Superman. When justice is gone, there's always force. And that's about Nietzsche's Superman. Although, if you watch it, it's really interesting to watch it now. But when justice is gone, there's always force. And two of the cops really got that. Because if you're there without paperwork, you're liable. Justice is gone, but you're still using force. I mean, these guys don't see themselves in like the 1940s films we saw of the Nazis going around. They see themselves in the Braveheart or something. I don't know what they see themselves. But I mean, the reality is, when justice is gone, there's always force, and it's true. And if they can't support the merits of their actions with the correct paperwork, then they're breaking the law. And it's their job to question it. That's why we have the Nuremberg trials. So, at that point, they were too frightened to listen to me talk. That's the bottom line. And the police sort of accepted that that was what the score was. And I shook hands with them, and I said, check out what's going on, and I give them some, get out of debt free, and you get collared, and I said all these things to them. Which I think a couple of them will check out. Anyway, they take me back. So they then have to take me into court to say to me about contempt of court. Now, contempt of court, I dug this thing up 4 or 5 years ago, and if you go to FMOTL and put contempt of court, I went right through Archbold. Contempt of court is wholly the creature of the common law. Lord Diplock's ruling that the due administration of justice requires first the unhindered access to the constitutionally established courts. Well, I've been already denied that, so the clerk's in contempt of court because he's denied me due access. Okay, so the whole thing was a nonsense. So when they took me back in, they had the original magistrates, which I'm thinking. So he said, look, do you want to apologise for what's happened, which you mean to call purging your contempt, or are you going to deny it? And I said, I don't know what's going on. So he said, right, we'll have to leave, and we'll have to have a new set of magistrates. I said, well, it's not the magistrates we need to change, it's this clerk. It's this clerk. I've got no problem with the magistrates. But anyway, put it back yourself. Back out. Now all of a sudden, they're happy for me to go into the box. Right, for this contempt. Although you've been found guilty in your absence, you've been fined, whatever it was, it's irrelevant, so I get to pay it. Pounds, whatever, right, okay. Now you're up for contempt of court. Right, is it civil, is it criminal? Am I charged? What, this is where it starts to get grey. So I got into the box, and so the first thing I said was, listen, this guy is misapplying the law to this court. I know I don't have to plead guilty or not guilty. If there's business before the court, I've entered a preemptory plea. Or dilatory plea, sorry. So, at this point, so yeah, but we're not about that case, we're now on about the contempt of court. So, I don't know what's about. So, we had, I said, if I cause anyone to get upset or get, any way frustrated with what I did earlier, I said 6 of one and a half dozen of them. But if I cause any problem to anybody in the court, I apologise. I said, I don't accept your apology. Now immediately he's saying that he's the court. The court, it's him. I said, well, don't accept my apology. Well, I'm entitled to say that. I'm entitled to say that, that didn't happen. So the next thing was, cut a long story short, they give me 7 days, they give me this fine and 7 days for contempt of court. So, fine, right, it's not a problem. Do you want me to do it now? Said, yeah, no problem, then we'll go. So then they took me from Aberystwyth all the way to Swansea prison in the back of the van, again, without paperwork. But again, I was a civilian prisoner. This is the interesting part of this. So I was in there consensually, apparently. When we got to Swansea prison, whether it's the normal procedure, I don't know, but I was about 8 o'clock at night, I'm up in the reception, and I was with the medic, and the governor came in. Well, he just came in and said, is your name Guy Taylor? I said, yeah. He said, pleased to meet you, I'm the #1 governor, or this and that and that. I thought, well, that's really nice that the #1 governor comes up and introduces himself to you. I mean, if it's the standard procedure, then it's a good thing. He said, you're only in here 3.5 days. So I thought, 3.5, because I thought, well, I was given 7, I should have been out on Sunday. They don't kick you out on Sundays, you should have been Friday. But I think that they messed up, because when you become, I might be wrong, but back in the 80s and early 90s, I know that when you're a civilian prisoner, you have to do all the term. Who cares? So anyway, I spent 3.5 days in there, fantastic. Okay, I mean, they've got a telly nowadays, and they've got the toilet, and they've got a kettle in the south. Back in the old days, all you had was a mattress, you know, when I was younger. And of course, you know, I had a captive audience. You know, I had one Polish guy who couldn't speak much English, so I tried to give him as much information as the way I could. But the people on the wing who I did get a chance to speak to, I was communicating with. So one of them had a problem with not getting medical treatment, so I tried to help him on that. But it was 3.5 days, it was wonderful. And years ago, the police would tell you, don't give someone like me 3.5 days in prison. Well, I'm a granddad now, but, you know, when I was younger, I would have said, oh, I can keep an erection for 3.5 days. You know, that was the sort of thing I would have said, yeah? And by giving me 3.5 days, you know, I've had previous prison sentences. I had a 4-year sentence back in 2002, and when I came out in 2002, and they said that they didn't tell me until the night before I had parole. Now, normally, you get told 6 or 8 weeks in advance so you can have home leave. But me, I'm going to, it's 8 o'clock at night, and I'm either out in the morning or I've got another 8 months. Yeah? So giving me 3, I mean, to be honest with you, it was a rest, you know what I mean? So, and it was also the time to, and of course, while I was in there, it was fantastic because, you know, the support that we got was unbelievable. Blocked Aberystwyth Court. And of course, some wonderful people like that, had gone to this guy's Facebook page, and he's the clerk of the court. Right? And they found on his Facebook page that he'd been involved in all these dogging and sex sites. He put it on his own. Of course, they screenshotted all that. They took the Facebook page down that day, but it's too late. And of course, then you got people who said, I've been in the civil service 25 years, and this guy is outrageous, involved in all these sex sites with his name on it. And even worse, he put on one part, David Cameron and the Tories should be cold. Oh, he's an officer of the court, he shouldn't be, you know, how arrogant are these people? When we get away from the comedy of these clowns, right, how arrogant are these people that actually think that they can, oh well, I don't bother putting a false name up on Facebook and get my other life involved in that, you know what I mean? They've gone straight for it. So this is the arrogance, and this is the arrogance of what's happening with common purpose and things, I think, you know. They've infiltrated the system, you know, you've got Masons, you've got whatever you've got, common purpose. They'll get cancer in the system. And I went to my grandson's birthday party last weekend. It was great in Abergavenny, sorry. And in Abergavenny, it's Kingdom Come School. I thought it was a Jehovah's Witness place, but it wasn't. It was just a big kids' adventure playground. So I got into all the balls, you know, all the plastic balls you get into the ball pit. And I felt this is where I think, you know, a lot of people here are in the position. We've got the colours may be wrong, but we've got the red balls. And they're the system slaves. Oh yeah, doing this, paying all that, doing all that. And then we've got the blue balls, which are the parasites, from the royal family down. So people breaking the law and thinking, oh well, I know I should be looking at the paperwork, but it gives a shit, you know, I've got a pension coming. And we've got the system parasites, and we've got the system slaves, and then that's like a bunch of green balls or something, sort of floating around in the middle, getting squeezed from all ends, you know, and pushed around, you know. I think, well, this is wrong, but these people don't seem to mind, you know. And I think that's what we've got, and we've got that going on a national level, you know, on an international level, all over the country, and all over the world, you know, on one scale or another. But we're all waking up to it. So we're all waking up to that stuff. And so I've got the bottom line is immediately then, because people have done such good work, this clerk's Facebook page is down. I would get people on Saturday nights, which I know then, why would I get this on a Saturday night? These girls contacting me, can you please remove this from there and all that? Well, he's socialising now, yeah? And this is where, and so now this is his social element, he's moaning about to his social element. Of course, by the Monday, he had all the complaints in against him, and the appeals come through, and the appeals on Swansea Crown Court on the 11th of June, the 3rd of June, 11th another case, on the 3rd of June. So we're going to nail them, right? We're going to nail them because of their failures in procedure and process, right? When you appeal against the magistrate's court decision, it's a completely fresh trial, a completely fresh hearing. If it's a summary only offence, You only get a judge, but 2 magistrates who are lay people. But the whole thing has to be brought out again. So now this case, because I said there was no case to answer, because I said there was a dilatory plea under Turnbull, they're thinking, oh, he's not a lawyer, he's not a barrister, just steamroller him, right? I've been in trials, you know, I've had experience since 1980. I know about Turnbull, I know about these things. I would never have told people 20 years ago because it wasn't in my interest, you know, I'll keep these things there for me if I get nicked. You know what I mean? It's a different place now. So that information is crucial. It is key. Back in the old days until 1997, until Tony Blair came in, a lawyer, in this country the rules are different. If you got charged with a criminal offence, you went, if it was an indictable offence, if you go to Crown Court, you were offered the opportunity, you had a committal before you got there, so you went before the magistrates. When you went before the magistrates, you could either have a section 1 or a section 2. Section 2 is, well, they may have my fingerprints and photograph and all that, but I'm going to deny it anyway because I had an alibi. Section 1 means you examine all the evidence to make sure there's a prima facie case, to make sure there's a case against you. So of course, we used to use this. Okay, let's see what the prosecution case is in. They claim to have all this evidence, bring it up. And of course, it used to fall apart pretty quickly if they'd overcharged you. Of course, in 1997, Tony Blair introduced, so got rid of that. Can't get rid of it, we'll cover it up. Don't allow the law profession to use that anymore. We'll cover that up with a big blanket and say that we're not using it anymore, only in exceptional circumstances. And if you check out exceptional circumstances, they're usually lawyers who've been caught out. There's something in the Isle of Man got caught out using it. You try using it, it ain't gonna happen. Right? So our defence to that is no case to answer. No case to answer. There's not even a plea to be put on the table yet, because you haven't even established that the crime's happened. It's bad enough having a plea not guilty to something I haven't done, then I'm not guilty to something that hasn't even happened. So let's get the crime on the table. So that's the position we're in. And the public have caught on to this fairly quickly and have been hammering the same as they did previously with all the CPR rules about case files. And we've discovered that all today's either the Crown Court or the county and the civil courts have got no records of you being made bankrupt, Mr. Smith, no records of your house being taken off you, Mr. Crawford, no records. Well, if you haven't got the records, then what does it mean? What can we do? Okay, so we've been looking at fraud, etc. And there's a great man who's been helping me. I helped him a couple of years ago. He's got a business in France and in this country, not very prosperous at the moment because of what's happened to him. He got robbed by a solicitor he'd seen my name connected to the solicitor, so he contacted me. And he had a printing business, and he's very much involved in consumer rights. And he's told me that consumer rights last year, 2015, major act came out. And it's to do with service providers. So we've got the Crown Prosecution Service, Her Majesty's Court and Tribunal Service. So I'm thinking, well, consumer rights, does that mean shit? I don't know. It's not I've got no speciality and I've got no experience. So we've gone into it, and I had this a meeting with Roger Hayes and a couple of other people, and this guy came over from France to try and get to the roots of what we're dealing with and what he's saying. Yeah? And it's very interesting. And again, we haven't explored this, but we know what we know off a consumer rights expert. Yeah? Right, so Consumer Rights Act 2015. It's a liability that cannot be excluded or restricted. Well, that's interesting. Okay. Its key definition is: businesses include the activities of any government department or local or public authority. So of course they're providing the services. We're paying for it. The moment you step beyond the dock being the criminal, allegedly, it doesn't mean that you haven't paid for the services that are being provided for you. You paid for that, so you're a customer, and until you're found guilty, you're still a customer. Even when you're found guilty, you're a customer. The court process is now accountable under the Consumer Rights Act 2015. All public bodies with no exception. Service to be performed with reasonable care and skill. Every contract to supply a service is to be treated as to including a term that the trader must perform the service with reasonable care and skill. Right? So you've got to start re-looking at what I particularly have had to re-look at this. Consumer rights, because the Consumer Rights Act actually establishes the Magna Carta as human rights. It But in consumer rights, because they're the service providers and we're the customers. And so it needs a lot of analysis, it needs a lot of people going in there, just asking these questions, because what we've done is this. We've asked the Solicitor Regulatory Authority who regulates them. It's a bit like asking the Monopolies Commission, you know, the Monopolies Commission, as Screaming Lord such said, there's only one Monopolies Commission. You know, I was in prison and we had a thing by Screaming Lord such, and he said, the funny thing is, there's only one Monopolies Commission. And he did it as a joke, but it's true, isn't it? There's only one. So are the Solicitors Regulatory Authority actually a regulatory body, and who regulates them? They can't answer the question, because they're basically a branch of the Law Society. And the Legal Services Act 2007 is incompatible with the Consumer Rights Act 2015. That has royal assent, you know, I'm talking about in their world, you know, all this is in their world, in my world, but, so they're incompatible. So now we know, through checking solicitors' blogs, they're frightened to death, because it means that they've all been, to a certain extent, uninsured since 2007. And that's probably why we've got all these conveyancers signing over all these documents, taking big risks. And like I say, you know, we've got old farmers who have died and their sons and daughters are saying, well, I can't understand, we've lost the property, and we never heard about this. But of course all this has been done by the phone through their key accounts. So their fraud is rife. Since a lawyer came to power, like Blair, you know, you couldn't even advertise back until the 90s. Lawyers couldn't advertise. They're solicitors. They solicit for trade. You know what I mean? They're prostitutes. You know? Sure. It's what they are. They're not looking after your interests. You know, they're looking after theirs. So there are all these things going on. You know, and so I'm so honoured to have been arrested and taken to a jail for 3.5 days. It's an arrest, man. You know, I mean, no, I know that the organised crimes branch, that's the last thing that back 25 years ago would have done. That's just going to empower him. Because all I did is I sat in there with that Consumer Rights Act, trying to go through it the best I could, and I've been informed, went right through it, informed everybody, had a captive audience, and carried on, and played on. And I mean, if they want to lock me up every 3 months, I'm happy. Look, if we can expose it, and if we can get this place full every time, brilliant. Well, you know, we need a bigger place. We need a bigger place, don't we? As simple as that. So that's fantastic. That's wonderful. So if you're full up like this, what I said to Mark and to Tom and everybody, if anybody wants to talk with any of the speakers, or you can speak to myself, but you should come and talk to me. So that's what it's all about. It's all about talking and experience. And so, you know, people might not be able to get in, or whatever, but it doesn't matter, because we'll all have a chat later. Yeah? Anyway, I ain't saying no more. Right, that's me lot. I'll try to keep it real funny for the end, but...
Debt Free TV, in association with GetOutOfDebtFree.org.